Hello everyone, Genki here. Being Thane in one of Skyrim's many holds gives the player many perks, such as the ability to purchase property, a new enchanted weapon, and a housecarl, whose combat ability can range from decent to great. What if we took on Skyrim's main quest, but we were forced to limit ourselves to only the gifts and rewards from Jarls? Well, that's what I decided to find out. To elaborate, I am restricting myself to the weapons and armor given to us by Jarls. I am allowed to craft/purchase consumable items such as potions and arrows. Before completing the run, I must become Thane in all 9 of Skyrim's holds. Also, just to put it out there, followers are allowed as long as they're one of the housecarls. Now, let's begin. I went with Orc for the Berserker Rage ability. I named him Stab Grew Slash. It should be Grow Slash, but I made a typo. Our journey starts like usual, with our life being saved by Alduin. However, as we had no weapon that we could use, we just beeline towards the exit. Once outside, we activated the Warrior Stone and made our way straight to Whiterun. At level 1, Jarl Balgruuf can give us either a studded Imperial Cuirass or a Steel Cuirass. We thankfully got the Steel Cuirass. We then got the quest from Farengar to take on Bleakfell Sparrow. Our first weapon will not be until after we defeat our first dragon, which means we're taking on the dungeon with just our fist. We at least reached level 2, taking the first rank of Juggernaut to raise our lackluster defense. When taking on the Frostbite Spider, I decided to activate Berserker Rage, doubling our damage and having our damage taken. Stab's fists only do 4 damage per hit, so with Berserker Rage that's now 8 damage, which is slightly stronger than an iron sword. This made me regret not taking one of the beast races, but eventually the spider went down. We then suffered our way through the Draugr section, until we reached the boss of the dungeon, a Draugr Overlord. Before the fight, I made sure to wait a day so that we could go for Berserker Rage again, as I don't think we could win without it. However, as we did not need to break out a single health potion, I realized we could have probably gone without the power. It would have just taken a lot longer. Off the Overlord's corpse, we looted the Dragonstone and returned the Dragon's Reach. There, we received our second piece of armor, an Iron Helmet of Alteration. However, as we are not allowing magic, I decided to reset to reroll the item, this time getting an iron shield to resist shock. I would have preferred a pair of boots to hide our grippers, but this will do. We then made a trip to Riverwood to make ourselves a vegetable soup, before meeting up with Irilith at the Western Watchtower. Vegetable soup gives us 1 point of stamina recovery every second for 6 minutes. A shield bash only requires 1 point of stamina, meaning the moment Myrmidon lands, we can effectively stun lock him in place, giving Irilith and the Whiterun guards the opening to take the dragon out. With it defeated, we can make our way back to the Jarl, and get rewarded with our first weapon for the run, the Axe of Whiterun, which this run had manifested as an iron battle axe with the Soul Trap enchantment. We got super lucky with that enchantment. This will save us a lot of money on soul gems. For those who don't know, the Thane weapons are all random, except for the type of weapon. The weapon will always be either a sword or an axe. Whether the weapon is one-handed or two-handed is completely random. The material type and enchantment are both influenced by the player's level. Higher levels do not phase out weaker material types though. You can still get an iron weapon at level 20. Next up for our quest for Ultimate Thanehood was Riften. At the docks, we could find Wajida, and by giving her a health potion, we could somehow cure her drug addiction. You would think she needed a cure disease potion or something similar. We could then squeeze info out of her about her supplier, which we turned into the Jarl. The Jarl was well aware of the Skooma dealer, but Sarthas apparently had a man on the inside to warn him of a potential arrest. By agreeing to deal with the Skooma dealer, the Jarl gave us permission to enter the dock warehouse, where we rushed in and took out Sarthas. This got us level 3, where we took the first rank in the Barbarian perk to start boosting our two-handed damage. In a satchel pouch, we then found the location of where Sarthas was getting his skooma, Cragsland Cavern. Relaying this to the Jarl, she then told us to take care of the skooma makers. Cragsland Cavern was a gambling den, which meant other than the guards and the boss, it was filled with normal people, who all went down to 2 hits of our axe. The butcher, however, came out swinging, with banded iron armor and a steel warhammer. Thankfully, he aggroed straight to Lydia, making this usually difficult boss a piece of cake. I then discovered part of the reason the butcher was so easy was because I was playing on Adept. I usually play on Expert, but I had to reinstall Skyrim prior to this challenge. Oops. With the butcher dead, we returned to Jarl Layla, who then rewarded us with a hunting bow of embers, our one and only form of ranged combat for this challenge. Selling our loot then got us level 4, where I picked up the steel smithing perk. We honestly didn't need to pick this up yet, as we needed 27 smithing to truly upgrade our armor. We then went around town and started helping out the townsfolk. To beat Thane of Riften, we needed to help out 5 people. First, we gave both beggars a coin. We then talked to Branchet, who wanted help finding out about his real parents. He was raised by a family of Argonians, hence his name. Outside of Winterhold, we could find the remnants of a large ship being used as a bandit camp. Inside the ship we could find a journal, which revealed that Branchet was a member of House Talvani. Next was helping Shader by paying off his debt to Sapphire. Last was helping Alessandra in the Hall of the Dead. By giving her dagger to Anders in Whiterun, she could find peace with her late father. That's 5 people helped, meaning we could get the option to ask about becoming Thane. However, Jarl Layla requires us to buy a house before she can make us Thane. Honeyside is 8,000 gold, and we were only at 3,300, so this was going on the back burner for now. Before moving on to our next hold, I decided to first take the trip to Hrothgar. Along the way, we hit level 5, where I took the first rank in haggling. This challenge requires us to buy 4 player homes, so the more money we get from selling loot, the better off we'll be. Inside Hrothgar, we proceeded to get yelled at, because the Greybeards were insulted we would enter their homes with our toes out. We then got told that we'll only be forgiven if we retrieve a drinking horn from the tomb of Jorgen McDorgan. However, that's in Morthal, and we are not ready to go there yet. Next up was actually Falkreath. The Jarl needed us to give him a bottle of Blackbriar mead. By giving him the bottle as tribute, he will then ask us to take care of some bandits. This time, it was the bandits at Knife Point Ridge. The boss posed some issues, as Lydia chose to fight at a distance, but then the boss decided to get himself stuck behind a fire pit, giving us the upper hand in the fight. Turning in the quest gave us 500 gold, and the ability to ask about becoming Thane. Since Falkreath was a smaller hold, the Jarl only required us to help out 3 people. I already have 1 person helped because before entering Falkreath, I sold firewood to Hurt at Half Moon Mill. I decided to next help Renil, who runs the Hall of the Dead. He needed us to help retrieve his lost journal. However, before leaving town, I first talked to Thagir, who was currently in the process of fusing with the town's journal store. Thagir wanted us to help deliver the ashes of his friend to Renil, which was an easy and quick task, as Renil was literally down the street. Back to Renil's journal. The journal was in Holdier's Cairn. The dungeon was filled with Ghost and Draugr. Taking them out got us to level 6, where we took the 2nd rank of Barbarian. The boss of Holdier's Cairn was in fact Haldir, who was a big jump in difficulty compared to the rest of the dungeon. We activated Berserker Rage, but we did not rush Haldir. We instead flanked him, as Lydia went for the frontward assault. Taking Haldir at almost half activated his gimmick, where he split into 3 ghosts, each with a different element. Taking them all out resulted in Haldir reappearing. However, it looked like Haldir could only do his clone jutsu once, resulting in him going down. We can now take Renil's journal from the chest, along with Bjorn's drum. I guess the Barge Claw stuff is designed to be in the overworld even before you join. That's gonna make Solitude a little easier. Returning to Falkreath, we returned Renil's journal and made our way to the Jarl, who made us Thane and gave us the Blade of Falkreath, which took the form of a mace. I was honestly really confused. However, I discovered this was a bug. I have had Jarl Sigurd give me a real sword before, but here's the issue. In order to reset the weapon, I would need to load a save from before the Jarl said he was looking for a new Thane. My closest save was from before we did Knife Point Ridge. I was not doing that, so I accepted the mace and our new housecarl, Rhea. However, we sadly did not get to see Rhea in action, as we had finally reached 8,000 gold, allowing us to become Thane of the Rift, where we were rewarded with another mace. This situation though was different than Falkreath. Do you notice how our Mace of Falkreath is called Blade of Falkreath, while our Mace of the Rift is not called Blade of the Rift? That's because the Blade of the Rift can only be retrieved via console commands. I tried to use console commands to get it, but I could never get it to work. Also, weirdly enough, this weapon is generated when you start a new playthrough, so it will always be iron and always have a weak enchantment. On the bright side, we now get a new partner, as inside Honeyside, we could find Iona. Next up on our list was Morthal. However, before messing with the town, we first took on Oostengrove. Against the bandits outside, I went with our Mace of Valkyrie, but with no points in one-handed, it was quite a challenge. Inside the tomb, we quickly switched to our Mace of the Rift, since it at least had an enchantment that damaged health. Taking out some of the Draugr got us to level 7, where I took the French rank in Armsman for more one-handed damage. That helped a little bit, but our saving grace for this dungeon was definitely Iona. For the spiders, we switched to our bow. The fire damage helping us take out the small ones in one shot. Iona then got herself stuck when we started to fight the big one, but thankfully she managed to get herself unstuck. This gave us access to the final chamber, where we could find the not horn of Yorgr McDorgan. After that painful dungeon, I decided we need more experience, so I made a trip back to Whiterun to complete Amron's quest, and return his father's sword to him. This got us to level 8, allowing us to take the second rank in Armsman. Returning to Morthal, we talked to the innkeeper. We asked her about the burned down house. This led us to talking to the Jarl, who asked us to investigate the house. Inside what was left of the house, we could find Helgi, who wanted us to play hide and seek. However, we had to wait until nighttime. Behind the town, we could find a grave, and a vampire. Behind the town, we could find a grave, which was where Helgi was hiding. This caused Thane to show up, and he told us that Layla, the vampire we just killed, had ran away from home and before leaving was spending a lot of time with Alva. Breaking into Alva's house, we found an enraged Hrogar, but more importantly, a coffin and Alva's journal. Giving the journal to the Jarl, we discovered that Alva was being controlled by Movarth, an ancient vampire. We were asked to deal with Movarth. Thankfully, the Jarl at least gave us some company, and by company I mean just Thane. Movarth was definitely not an opponent you want to face while wearing only one piece of armor. However, by stealth archering his thralls, we could get the battle down to 1v1. I say 1v1 because both Iona and Thane had vanished for some reason. Luckily, upon facing Movarth, this idiot decided to go pure melee, not using his vampiric drain until he was one hit from death. Oh hi Iona, where the fuck have you been? And where's Thane? Defeating Movarth gave us the ability to become Thane of Fjallmarch. We just needed to help out 2 more people. I first sold some firewood to Jorgen. I then talked to Egrod's daughter, who wanted us to deliver a letter to the Temple of Kenrith in Whiterun. While in Whiterun, I did some disenchanting to get us to level 9, where I decided to pick up the second rank of Juggernaut. That's 3 of Morthal's citizens helped, allowing us to become Thane of Fjallmarch and receive an Orcish sword with an absorbed magic enchantment. Too bad I'm not allowing magic this run. We also received Valdemar, our newest housecarl. Our next hub was Winterhold. The Jarl there wanted us to help retrieve the Helm of Winterhold from Ingol Barrow. Ingol Barrow was just outside Windhelm. Along the way, we got attacked by an ice wolf, and this was where I discovered that Voldemar was a battle mage. Voldemar, my goat! Entering Ingol Barrow, we discovered no enemies, except for our Draugr overlord, who did not stand a chance with us and Voldemar's combined might. We found the helm in the chest. Giving it to the Jarl opened up our ability to become Thane. We just needed to complete 3 tasks. First was helping Hauron deal with Ronmir. Ronmir was a drunk who refused to pay his tab. We just paid it off for him. Next was helping Malor sell off by stealing Nalakar's staff and giving it to him. For our last task, I just dug up and sold some ore at the local mine. However, because we were so close to hitting level 10, I decided to not turn in the quest yet, and made my way to Riverwood to progress the main story. Salaknir was not much of a challenge. By taking advantage of shield bashes, we could smack away with our Blade of Fjallmarch. Dragons use a magical bar for their shouts, rather than a cooldown timer. So by absorbing Salaknir's magicka, we forced it to only use melee, making it a relatively easy fight. This did not quite get us level 10. However, we were so close to a speech level that selling some stuff got us to level up. I took the first rank of Bladesman for a boosted chance to crit with a one-handed sword. Now we could return to the Jarl, who made us Thane, and reward us with a steel sword with a magic damage enchantment. At least there was some good news. Winterhold is the only hold with no player home, meaning no new housecarl. In other words, more adventures with our goat, Valdemar. As we are around halfway done, let's look at what we have left. Markarth and Nonstar, which both required the player to be level 20, Solitude, which is the Potemkin quest, and Windhelm, which requires the Civil War. I decided to get started on the Civil War by joining the Imperials. I'll go more into why later. First was clearing out Fort Frastak, which had multiple bandit thugs, forcing us to use the Berserker Rage. Not only that, but all the thugs were two-handers. The bandit chief was no slouch either with his orcish warhammer. We had to go with our Mace of the Rift, so that we could use our shield to bash him out of his power attacks. Sheesh. Next up was retrieving the Jagged Crown from Corvajun. Though the Stormcloaks were on par with ordinary bandits. The experience did give us a level up, where we took the third rank of Barbarian. The only real danger in the dungeon was the Draugr Scourge at the end, though with all the backup we had, we ended up switching to taking out the two restless Draugrs, before going back to the Scourge, who was already at half. A couple of power attacks finished him off. Giving the crown to Tullius meant it was time for the battle for Whiterun. We started the battle off strong, going for Berserker Rage with our Bladed Hall March. There were no magic users among the rebels, but I figured it would be good to shield bash. As we went on our killing spree, I would like to point out, I am collecting every steel shield the Stormcloaks have on them, since it has the highest value. We left the battlefield with a total of 15 steel shields. Next up for the Civil War was helping the Empire retake the rest of Skyrim, in the form of a video montage. Last for the Civil War was the battle to take Windhelm. We were now level 13. For new perks, we went with Arms rank 3 and Haggling rank 2. For weapons, I was switching between the Axe of Whiterun and the Mace of the Rift. We were making some good attempts with the Mace, but it was not until I did one last attempt with the Axe that we were finally able to reach the Palace of the Kings. When it came to the battle against Ulfric, we practically did not even touch him. Tullius and Rikka focused solely on him, while we ended up spacking away at Galmar. We at least got the kill cam. Also, Ulfric was thankfully kind enough to let us get the kill on him, ending the Skyrim Civil War, and fulfilling our big quest for 2 holds. Remember when I said both Dawnstar and Markarth required the player to be level 20? Well, we're actually able to bypass one of those, thanks to the Civil War. Dawnstar if we sided with the Empire, and Markarth if we sided with the Stormcloaks. Dawnstar's quest wanted us to kill a giant, which is why I chose the Empire. We still needed to help out 2 more citizens, which I did by mining ore from both of the town's mines. This rewarded us with a Dwarven sword that does magical damage. Skyrim really loves its magical damage. We also got a new companion, Gregor. It was at this point I decided we needed to boost our defense a little more. First was some magic defense. By talking to Dinya Balu and Riffin's Halamara, she will send us on a quest to unite 3 different couples across Skyrim. Along the way, we hit level 14, taking the Allure perk for better prices with female merchants. Completing the quests rewarded us with the Angel Amara perk, giving us a 15% resistance to magic. On to our next hold. By returning to Windhelm, we could now find Brunwolf Freewinter on the throne. Could you at least clean up the dead bodies first? Normally, we would need to do the Civil War up to Fort Newgrad, and do the Mer Mystery quest in order to get the option to become Thane. However, with Brunwolf, we just needed to buy the house, for a whopping 12,000 gold, and help out the citizens of Windhelm too, of course. We had the gold for the house, but for some reason, the game was still acting like the murder quest was still active. However, by going to the scene of the crime, there was nothing there. Maybe if we finished helping out the citizens of Windhelm, the house would become available. First was a trip to the Great Quarter to talk to Raven Sadri. He wanted us to help him by returning a stolen ring that someone sold to him. I then gave a gold piece to Silda. However, for the final quest, I decided to help the blacksmith. He wanted us to retrieve the sword of High Queen Freydis from Anselvan. Anselvan is a dungeon filled with mages and Draugr that included some of the most unbalanced audio in the game.
I am Lua Alskaven. Who are you to disrupt my work?
Its boss battle was also very difficult, as Lua Alskaven's ice spikes hit like a truck. And that's with the damage negation from Berserker Rage. Our hunting bow with fire arrows gave us the win. Taking out Lua despawned her 2 Draugr companions, allowing us to loot the sword we needed from a chest. Giving the sword to the blacksmith, they did not make the counter go up. Meaning we did all that for nothing. The blacksmith at least gave us some smithing experience, causing us to level up, where I finally decided to take Overdraw, for more bow damage. Inside Wilhelm's Inn, we could find Adonato Leotelli, who is a writer. He wanted us to deliver a copy of his latest book to Gerard Germain at the Bard's College, and thankfully this quest counted. We also gave Gerard Riorn's drum. This rewarded us with a bunch of experience. Back at the Palace of the Kings, we once again talked to the Jarl's steward, and I was right. We can now buy the house and become Thane of Eastmarch. The Jarl then gave us a Dwarven battle axe with a Turn on Dead enchantment. I love that it's Dwarven, but Turn on Dead up to level 7 means it only works on base level Draugr, Restless Draugr, and Draugr Overlords. Entering our newest house then started the murder quest for some reason. However, that is not my problem. What I was here for was our newest housecarl, Calder. 2 holds left. Let's get started on Solitude. We were to investigate Wolfskull Cave. It was mostly a necromancer cave, with a couple of Draugr. Most notably a Draugr Scourge, who can of course summon a Frost Atronach. The Frost Atronach was thankfully too big to go up the stairs. It was still a 2v2, with Calder and I facing the Scourge and an apprentice necromancer. To speed up the damage, I activated Berserker Rage, taking out both the Scourge and necromancer. Delving deeper into the cave, we could find a group of necromancers trying to summon Queen Fatima. We were out of health potions, so I had to be more methodical this battle. I went with our Blade of the Pale, the magical damage forcing the necromancers to switch to their daggers, making the fight a lot easier. By reporting the folk Firebeard of the necromancer's attempt to bring back Fatima, we can now get a quest from the Jarl, asking us to bring King Toryg's horn to a shrine of Talos. This unlocked the ability to become Thane of Solitude, but we would first need to buy Proudspire Manor, which cost 25,000 gold. That's everything we could do until we either hit level 20 or get enough money to buy the house in Solitude, which means we're back to the main quest. Time for the Falmer Embassy. The first few soldiers got us to level 16, where I decided to take the Limb Splitter perk for bleed damage with our battle axes, even though we primarily went one-handed for the embassy, as our shield's shock resistance helped with the mages. This worked for the most part, until we reached Element Solar. Rolindo's lightning bolts did not care for our shock resistance, but a couple of shield bashes that stunned him out of his animations gave us the win. With Rolindo dead, we could make our way into the interrogation chamber, and read the dossier on Esbern, save Malborn from the Thalmor, and make our escape. We then got a letter from Folk, continuing the Fatima quest. This would give us a new shield, in the form of the Shield of Solitude. However, the problem is that Folk gives the player the shield, and not Jarl Elisif, thus making it not a reward from a Jarl. Down the Ratways, it seemed that Thalmor had already begun their search for Esbern. However, they were no stronger than their counterparts back at the embassy, leading to an easy retrieval of Esbern. Bringing Esbern to Riverwood, he told Delphine and I that we needed to go to Skyhaven Temple, which was in Karspire. This meant a guaranteed dragon encounter, and Forsworn. With multiple archers and magic users, we quickly got the dragon down to where it was forced to land, but from there things got bad. Multiple deaths, with the dragon at a small amount of health. This led to me keeping my bow out for the entire dragon fight. We then for the most part ignored the Forsworn, and ran the Karspire and up the Skyhaven Temple. Once inside, Esmer then told us we needed a shout to defeat Alduin. This meant another trip to Hrothgar. However, before making my way there, I went here. I sometimes just don't feel like making multiple trips up to the throat of the world, fast travel or not. Thankfully, Septimus will give the player the items needed to retrieve the Elder Scroll, no matter where they are in the story. Reaching the Elder Scroll required going through a Dwarven ruin. Dwarven robots are immune to frost, so as a result, we went with our axe at Eastmarch. This made easy work of the spiders, but the spheres were still a challenge. Thankfully, we had Calder to back us up. Picking some locks then got us to level 17, where I decided to bank the perk for later. This was because upon reaching the Falmer section, we hit 60 and two-handed, allowing us to take the 4th rank of Barbarian. The increase in damage made the Falmer slightly easier than the Dwarven spheres. Not to mention, unlike the robots, the Falmer can bleed. However, to get past the one higher level Falmer in the area, we did have to activate Berserker Rage. We then completely ignored the Dwarven Centurion and beelined our way into Blackreach, where we continued to avoid conflict, heading straight to the Tower of Mazark and grabbing the Elder Scroll. It was not yet time for Alduin though. I really wanted to get all the Thane titles before heading out to the Throat of the World. I decided to first do all the quests needed for the citizens of Solitude, starting with the alchemist. She needed help finding out what happened to her daughter. By talking to a captain of the guard, we could find out that she died in battle. We then helped Noster Eagle-Eye get his old helmet back, which involved traversing a cave filled with a bunch of wild animals and Spriggans. We then helped Yvette's son get her shipment of spices from the East Empire Company by paying the 2,000 gold tariff. Rip-off artist. That's 5 quests, if you also include the Potemkin quest and giving Gerard Reorange Drum. Next up was hitting level 20 for the Markarth quest. We first cleared out Swindler's Den, getting us to level 18. We took the second rank of Overdraw. We then cleared out Kolskirger Mine. This was so we could mine out all the gold ore and smith them down to gold rings. This got us to 31 smithing, but not quite level 19. We were finally able to take advantage of the steel smithing perk we took at the beginning of the video by tempering our armor to superior. A random dragon is what got us to level 19, where we took the dwarven smithing perk. I think you know where this is going. Time for some dwarven bow grinding. And there's level 20. And 2,000 gold. 5,000 more to go. I did not take a perk yet, by the way. Approaching the Jarl of Markarth, he will first task us with dealing with a random Forsworn camp. After defeating all the Forsworn, the Jarl will then task us with retrieving Hrolfdale's shield. The shield was at Lost Valley Redoubt. However, before heading there, I first activated the Lord Stone for more defense. We did not need the Warrior Stone anymore. Lost Valley Redoubt had a lot of Forsworn. Not to mention a Briarheart that had access to Ice Storm and a Frost Atronak. This took a few tries, but we were able to rush him with our Blade of the Pale. The Briarheart was not the boss of the dungeon, by the way. At the end, we found 2 Hag Ravens and a second Briarheart. We had to take out each enemy one at a time, as the others, hopefully, stayed focused on Calder. This Briarheart was thankfully a melee fighter, unlike the last one, making him an easier opponent. Returning the shield then rewarded us with a helmet. Yes! New armor! I decided to reset though, as the Jarl first gave us a light armor helmet. He then gave us a steel plate helmet, which I kept, since it at least somewhat matched our armor. We now had to do our quest to help the citizens of Markarth. First was helping Lisbeth retrieve a special Debel statue that was taken by the Forsworn. The Forsworn were at Deepwood Redoubt. Calder, no! This dungeon was larger than expected. At the end was a Briarheart, with a fire axe that hit like a truck. We had to once again break out Berserker Rage. An elven axe that does 15 points of fire damage, by the way. Next up was helping Gorza Grobaggle by retrieving a smithing skill book to give to her apprentice. A copy of the book was at Fort Sungard, which was being used as a Forsworn camp. We then gave a Daedra heart we happened to have to Gorza's brother Moth. This completed all the quests we needed for Markarth. Last we needed to do was buy the Markarth player home. When I originally recorded this, I did not expect to have to buy this home. So this caught me blindsided. The home was only 8k, but this just put us further back from being able to purchase products from our manor. At least we got a new sword. Huh? Must be another bug. Thanks, Todd. At least we now have a melee weapon with a fire enchantment. Inside our new home, we picked up our newest housecarl, Argus the Bulwark. Buying the home in Markarth brought our gold down to 18k. We started selling some things to the Khajiit Caravan. This guy's level 21, where we took the 3rd rank of Juggernaut and the 3rd rank of Haggling. Okay, I'm going real. I did not feel like raiding any more bandit camps, so to make up for the rest of my needed, I used the secret chest of Nonstar and sold the Khajiit Caravan back their stuff. In this singular playthrough, I have collected almost 50,000 gold. There is only so much raiding one person can do. With 25,000 gold in our possession, we returned to Jarl Elisith and bought Proudspire Manor, completing our last quest for ultimate Thanehood. As Thane, we received the Blade of Hoffinger, a steel greatsword with a 5-point shock enchantment. For a final weapon, that's a little anticlimactic. We also got our final housecarl from the run, Yordis the Sword Maiden. Come on, Yordis, let's go slay a World Eater. With Yordis as tank, Alduin easily went down to a combo of Berserker Rage and our Axe of Eastmarch. Thankfully for this playthrough, we had to do the Civil War. This allowed us to bypass the Beast Council, and immediately get to trapping Odahviing, who then took us to Skaldothin. Using our Axe of Eastmarch and the Axe of the Reach, we took out both dragons and all the Draugr stationed outside the temple. As we were such a high level, this meant the Draugr were mostly whites and scourges. This logic also applied to the interior. Thankfully, it was not as bad, as we only had to deal with restless and whites and no scourges. At the end of the dungeon was a White Lord. Using its long reach, we used our Blade of Hotfinger, until the White Lord decided to use its disarm shot to blow it out of our hands. This brought out our Axe of the Reach, which in combination with shield bashes we used to defeat the White Lord. Exiting the temple once again, we were met with more Draugr scourges. However, with us having very little in terms of healing potions left, we skipped past them, and knocked green, and ran straight into the fort of the Sovngarde. To get to Alduin, we needed entry into the Hall of Valor, which meant we needed to fight soon, and this was quite a problem. What I ended up finding that worked was using our Axe of the Reach with our shield. The fire damage doing a little bit of damage over time, while our shield helped bash soon out of his power attacks. This was easier said than done though, but we managed to get done. We could not meet up with the ancient heroes, and begin our final battle with Alduin. The main reason soon took me so long was because I was saving Berserker Rage for Alduin. It was not really needed, as the fight was a 4v1, but I find nothing wrong with wanting to trivialize this already easy boss fight. And there you have it. Skyrim beaten using only the armor and weapons given to us by the Jarls. Thank you all for watching. If you made it this far, I'll let you in on a little secret. I'm currently experimenting with some mods. Nothing huge, as I still want Skyrim to feel like Skyrim. So if you want to see more of what I'm cooking up, I hope to see you in the next Skyrim video. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving a like and subscribing to the channel. See ya.